Overwhelming grief nearly crushed Ellie. Just as the pain left her barely able to breathe, she suddenly heard the sound of a door opening. Ellie thought she was hallucinating, but when she looked up, she saw her youngest son John walking out of the house. She had no time to think, and rushed forward to hold the child tightly. Only after her emotions eased slightly did Ellie notice the bloodstains on the ground. Trembling, she walked into the house. When she saw what lay before her, Ellie covered her mouth in shock, nearly collapsing on the spot. She clutched John tightly, forcing herself to calm down. After her emotions finally steadied, Ellie quietly asked John what had happened. But when John told her the whole story, Ellie was frozen in place. Ellie was a beautiful widow. She lived on the edge of the forest with her 3 children. One day the children went up the mountain to play, while Ellie, who stayed home, encountered an uninvited guest. The man was a hunter from the mountains. He had long coveted the woman living alone, but Ellie wanted nothing to do with him. After being rejected by Ellie, the hunter became furious. He forced his way into the house, attempting to assault Ellie. Facing the brutal man, Ellie angrily hurled a harsh statement: unless all her children were dead, she would never marry again in her life. Those words seemed to stun the hunter. After a brief silence, he turned and left. Once he was gone, Ellie immediately locked the door, but she did not know that the hunter had taken those words to heart. That night, the 3 children returned home. Ellie warned them that she would go to town the next day, and that they must never open the door to strangers. But Ellie did not know that this conversation had been overheard by the hunter outside the wall. The next morning, Ellie left home carrying a suitcase. At first, the children followed her instructions and locked the door, but soon a familiar whistling sound came from outside. It was the tune Ellie often hummed while working. The children found it strange. They quickly rushed to the window to look, but there was nothing outside. The eldest slowly lowered his guard, even forgetting their mother's warning. He insisted on opening the door to check. John hurried to stop him, fearfully warning that someone bad might be outside, but the eldest did not care at all. To him, John's resistance was a challenge to his authority. At that moment, a knock suddenly sounded. The eldest pushed John aside, seeing that he would not listen. The frightened John could only hide. When the eldest opened the door and saw the hunter standing outside, he panicked and tried to close it, but it was already too late. The hunter forced his way inside. The young children were no match for him. Soon there were no more sounds of struggle. Only John, hiding deep in the chimney, managed to survive because he was hidden well enough to force Ellie into submission. Before leaving, the hunter placed the heads of the 2 older boys on the window. That night, Ellie rushed back pushing a small cart. She quickly sensed something was wrong. Ellie could not accept the reality. She collapsed to her knees and screamed in grief. At that moment, the door slowly opened. John walked out from inside. Seeing her surviving youngest son, Ellie was overwhelmed. She rushed forward and hugged John tightly. After her emotions calmed slightly, Ellie asked what had happened. When she learned the killer was the hunter, she fell into complete despair. Her frail body was no match for him. To protect herself and John, Ellie could only pretend nothing had happened. She silently cleaned the blood from the house, trying to start a new life with John. But the hunter became John's nightmare. John woke up in terror almost every night, growing more haggard each day. Ellie finally understood that as long as the hunter lived, she and John would never be safe. The next morning, Ellie went into the forest and cut large amounts of firewood. She dug a deep pit in front of the house and threw the wood inside, then carefully covered it with a rug. After ensuring nothing looked suspicious, Ellie put on her finest clothes. Then she took out food she had treasured for years. With a sorrowful expression, Ellie went to the hunter's home. When she met the hunter, Ellie lied that criminals had come while she was away and murdered her children. To mourn them, she prepared a feast at her home and invited the hunter to attend. The hunter had no idea he was already exposed. Seeing Ellie's pitiful appearance, he lowered his guard and followed her home. At the table, the hunter brazenly touched Ellie, and only restrained himself when John appeared. When the hunter finally realized what was happening, his body was already soaked in gasoline, but it was far too late. Ellie lit a match and threw it into the pit. The greed and malice of the wicked will ultimately turn into poison that devours themselves. The hunter finally paid the price. This also tells us that when facing evil, as long as one dares to resist and plans wisely, evil will eventually be punished by justice. And never underestimate the wisdom and courage a mother can unleash to protect her child. The woman only wanted to trim her daughter's nails, but she bizarrely discovered that Lucy's nails were unusually hard, and the nail clipper couldn't cut them at all. Seeing the injured Lucy, Ellie was stunned, but before she could react, Lucy suddenly knocked over objects and ran out of the room. Fortunately, John upstairs noticed the unusual situation in time. He stopped Lucy, but seeing his daughter in a frenzied state, John helplessly suggested sending Lucy to a care facility until she recovered and could return home. However, Ellie felt deeply guilty toward Lucy, believing that all of this was her own negligence that led to her daughter's 20-year disappearance. So she firmly refused this suggestion. Faced with his strong-willed wife, John had no choice but to compromise. However, while tidying the bathroom, John suddenly discovered some fallen skin on Lucy's wheelchair. He picked it up and carefully examined it, realizing it was not skin but a piece of cloth. John was puzzled, so he went to the basement and gently pulled apart the cloth with tweezers. Sure enough, every layer of the cloth was covered with ancient Egyptian writing. He realized that these writings might be related to Lucy's ordeal. To uncover the truth, John visited a professor specializing in Egyptian culture. He handed the professor the photos he had taken. The professor reviewed the materials and quickly deciphered the inscriptions. He discovered that the inscriptions were related to an ancient dark legend. According to the legend, sacrificing a soul to an ancient evil god who controls dark powers would grant the sacrificer the god's protection. Hearing this, John formed a terrifying suspicion. Could Lucy have been cursed? Back home, he looked at Lucy lying on the bed and fell into deep thought. At that moment, John noticed that Lucy's teeth grinding was unusually rhythmic. He suspected that it was a signal Lucy was trying to send. John immediately took out paper and pen to record it. Then he went to the basement and retrieved a book on Morse code and began to decode the message Lucy was sending. After a few minutes, John discovered that Lucy was trying to convey the name Laura. John recalled a letter he had received from Egypt several years ago. The sender was Laura. The letter mentioned that she was close to Lucy, but Lucy seemed to be about to be taken somewhere. Laura wrote the letter to warn and rescue Lucy in advance. But at that time, John did not believe it. Realizing this now, John quickly informed Officer Lisa of the discovery. Following the address in the letter, Lisa arrived at a remote farm, but there was nothing there. Just as Lisa was about to leave, a strange girl suddenly appeared. Before Lisa could approach to speak, the girl quickly ran into the nearby woods. Lisa hurried after her and found her desperately digging at the edge of a cliff. After Lisa fired a warning shot, the girl slowly lifted the box she had dug up and placed it on the ground. Lisa opened the iron box and found a tape labeled with Lucy's name. It was then that the girl revealed to Lisa that she was Laura, the one who had sent John a letter years ago. Lisa immediately found John and handed the tape to him. It turned out that the woman who kidnapped Lucy was Laura's mother, because her family had been cursed by an ancient Egyptian evil god. The evil god controlled dark powers that could consume all light, and if the god descended upon the world, it would be shrouded in darkness. The woman's ancestors had made a pact with it, promising that sacrificing a pure soul on time would ensure the family's eternal prosperity. Therefore, the woman had to perform a transfer ritual every 10 years, transferring the god's power into a new body through mummification. And this time, Lucy was chosen. On screen, Lucy was tied to a wooden frame and placed in a stone coffin. As the woman recited the incantation, a dark force instantly took over Lucy's body. After the transfer, the woman wrapped Lucy in the inscribed cloth, then sealed her inside the stone coffin. Upon learning the truth, John's family felt deeply for Lucy's ordeal. But Ellie realized a crucial point. Since the dark power could be transferred, why couldn't the evil woman herself serve as the sacrifice? A few days later, Ellie was taken to Egypt, while the woman was awaiting trial.
This man took just one look at a disturbing painting. control of his movements. They were urging him to end his own life. Hammer, he smashes the spot where the equation is carved.
The expert was being interviewed. A thick cloud of mist suddenly entered his body. The host anxiously asked what had happened, but the expert could no longer speak. Everyone was frozen in fear by what they had just witnessed. Soon Officer John arrived at the scene. According to the police's initial investigation, the victim was a leading expert in material energy research. But where had that strange smoke come from? After watching the footage of the death, John still had no leads. Just then, the news department discovered a strange package. The package had been delivered before the interview. Everyone thought the package was extremely suspicious. Not a single person wanted to open it. At that moment, last night's host, Ellie, pulled the package over. But when she opened the box, she found nothing inside. There was only a QR code on the inside of the lid. Everyone feared it was a trap left by the killer, but Ellie believed it was an exclusive story deliberately sent to them. So, she scanned the QR code. Everyone was shocked by what they saw. The man in the video claimed to be the mastermind behind the incident. He said he had met the victim 25 years earlier. He announced that he would hold a press conference at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. He would explain exactly how and why he committed the crime. But only the media outlets that aired the video as their top story would be allowed to attend. After the video ended, the station was deeply divided. Some believed it was nothing more than a prank. He might not be the real killer. But Ellie discovered the video had indeed been recorded 8 hours before the murder, just as the station director was deciding whether to air it. Other TV stations had already broadcast the video. The director had no choice but to follow. Within minutes, news of the mysterious killer's upcoming press conference spread across America. Meanwhile, the police investigation reached a deadlock. They investigated the mysterious package. Strangely, the only fingerprints on it belonged to the delivery driver. The police also searched for the man in the video, but found nothing. The case was temporarily classified as a possible terrorist attack involving an unknown chemical substance. It was beyond anything anyone at the scene could understand. No one could explain what was really happening. The police also investigated the noodle shop mentioned by the man, but they still found nothing unusual. The police then set up surveillance around the noodle shop, but when the agreed time arrived, the man was nowhere to be seen. Ellie felt that something was off. So, she questioned the owner of the noodle shop. During their conversation, Ellie learned that the shop had been somewhere else 25 years ago. She instantly realized something. Ellie rushed to the location. She also sent a message to an officer she knew. When Ellie arrived, she found the man from the video waiting there. Before the media and police arrived, Ellie began interviewing him. The man claimed that he was the real victim. He said everything he had done was to judge the professor's sins. It turned out that 25 years ago, the professor had joined a secret organization. The organization controlled how society operated. Anyone or anything that threatened them would be covered up through their influence. He also declared that his next targets would be members of the organization. Just as Ellie tried to ask another question, the police arrived. The man ended the interview and walked out of the noodle shop. The police immediately ordered him to raise his hands. As the gas man raised his hands, the SWAT team moved in, but he suddenly transformed into a cloud of gas. The officers were quickly blasted to the ground. Then the gas man turned back into a wisp of smoke. He drifted through the scene with ease. The police knew they were no match for him. They could only watch him leave. Meanwhile, the interview with the gas man spread rapidly. A man watched it with a look of pure terror, because he knew the judgment had only just begun, and the secret buried for 25 years would finally be exposed. In my opinion, what is truly frightening is never the unexplained supernatural power, but the abuse of power to bury the truth and silence the innocent forever. When lies are allowed to exist for too long, someone will always choose the most extreme way to tear them apart.
So Anna decides to draw out the truth through a game. She has the boy imitate his father's expressions and gestures. Office. The film ends here.
Every night before bed, the female caregiver would pull back the old man's blanket. She would forcefully tie his hands and feet to the bed. She wouldn't leave until she was sure he couldn't move at all. But this time, just as Ellie turned around to leave, the two old men suddenly showed a creepy smile. Ellie quickly realized something was wrong. But since these two old men often played tricks on her, she didn't think much of it, until something strange happened while she was cleaning the room. The door suddenly slammed shut by itself. Confused, Ellie walked over to check it out. But before she could get close, the hospital bed suddenly started shaking violently. The next second, the entire bed was pushed by an invisible force and shot straight toward the door. Ellie had no idea what was happening. She rushed forward and tried to pull the bed back. But to her shock, the bed was like it had been welded to the floor. No matter how hard she pulled, it wouldn't move an inch. Just as Ellie started feeling uneasy, an invisible force suddenly attacked her from behind. It slammed her hard onto the hospital bed. Only then did Ellie realize she was in real danger. She desperately struggled off the bed, trying to move it and escape. But that invisible presence appeared again. It instantly pinned her back onto the bed. Then it forcibly tied Ellie's hands and feet down. After it was over, Ellie immediately called the police for help. She told the police that the invisible person who attacked her was most likely the two elderly men in the nursing home. But after examining Ellie, the police found no key evidence like hair or bodily fluids. Her injuries alone weren't enough for the police to officially open an investigation. To uncover the truth, agents Mulder and Dana came to the nursing home where Ellie worked. When they found the two elderly men and questioned them, the old men suddenly couldn't help but laugh. Then, right in front of them, one of the old men opened his towel, showing that his body had become this weak and aged. There was no way he could have done those dangerous things. What surprised Mulder and Dana even more was that the old man was convinced that everything was caused by a ghost. Seeing they couldn't get any more clues from him, Mulder and Dana went to the director's office to investigate. But after learning why they were there, The director pulled out Ellie's insurance claim documents. He suggested that Ellie might have staged the accident to collect insurance money, but her injuries were clearly so severe. Could all of this really have been a lie she made up for insurance money? Just as the two agents were feeling confused, a caregiver suddenly rushed in. He said the old man they had just questioned suddenly had trouble breathing and fell unconscious. Hearing this, the director and the others immediately rushed to the room, but while Dana was trying to save him, Mulder noticed a strange caregiver secretly watching them. Before he could think about it, the old man died after the rescue failed. According to the nursing home's doctor, Mulder learned that the old man had suffered from severe dementia. At its worst, he couldn't even finish a complete sentence. But after taking an experimental drug called Candy, his condition showed a shocking improvement. But Dana, who was also a doctor, felt something was wrong, because she clearly remembered that Candy's clinical results were nowhere near this powerful. So why had it become a miracle cure for everything at this nursing home? So Mulder and Dana followed the doctor and began investigating the treatments of other patients. They discovered that every elderly patient here had made an incredible recovery. The dementia that even the medical world struggled to treat was being cured like a miracle inside this nursing home. One of the elderly patients used to be a talented painter, but after getting sick, his memory and abilities kept declining. He couldn't even draw the simplest circle anymore. But after taking the experimental drug, he picked up his brush again and started creating art.
Dr. Grego tells us that you haven't been able to work in years, that the medicine has improved your...
Take the medication.
What is it then?
Just as the painter was about to reveal the truth, two male caregivers suddenly appeared. Using the end of mealtime as an excuse, they forcibly took all the elderly patients back to their rooms. Seeing this, Mulder and Dana realized there was definitely a secret hidden inside this nursing home. Those elderly patients who regained their abilities, were they truly cured, or did they pay an unknown price? Mulder and Dana slowly realized that sometimes, the answers humans desire the most, may be the most dangerous unknowns. Technology can bring life back from the edge, but when humans try to break the limits of nature, they must also face the consequences that follow. And the true secret hidden inside this nursing home may not just be a simple experiment, but a test of human desire, life, and the choices we make.
In 2013, Cairo, Egypt, was hit by the worst sandstorm in over a century. But when the storm cleared, an incredible discovery emerged from beneath the desert, a three-sided pyramid buried deep underground. Every known pyramid in the world has four sides, making this structure a complete anomaly. Even more disturbing, it appeared to be older than the Great Pyramid of Giza itself. Driven by curiosity, an expedition team ventured inside the mysterious pyramid, but it wasn't long before they became hopelessly lost. Eventually, they entered a massive chamber. Then suddenly, fortunately, they escaped with only minor injuries, just as Zahir was relieved that everything seemed fine.
What the hell is wrong with you, man?
A massive boulder crashed down onto Zahir's leg. No matter how hard the team tried, they couldn't move it even an inch. As everyone struggled to figure out what to do, Suni noticed a hole in the ceiling above them. She guessed it might be a way out and volunteered to climb up first. To her surprise, it really did lead to another passage. However, when she shined her flashlight into a narrow tunnel ahead, terrified by what she saw, Suni fell back into the chamber below. She quickly tried to tell the others what had happened, but before she could finish, Holden spotted a massive stone door ahead. Convinced that it led to the exit, he called everyone over to help clear away the wooden debris blocking it. Once the door was opened, the team found themselves staring into a dark, ominous passageway, but Zahir was still trapped beneath the boulder. Nora tried to reassure him, explaining that they had no choice but to move on. Once they made it outside and found a rescue team, they would come back for him. With no other option, Zahir reluctantly agreed to stay behind. But only moments after the group left, his screams echoed through the pyramid. Hearing the terrifying cries, everyone immediately rushed back the way they came. However, when they returned, Zahir had vanished without a trace. All that remained was a long trail of blood stretching into the darkness. At that moment, Suni completely lost her composure, and the team's confidence began to crumble. But just then,
Come on.
by this point, the group began to suspect that something unknown and deadly was lurking inside the pyramid. While searching for a way out, Holden accidentally triggered a hidden mechanism, causing the passageway to rapidly fill with flowing sand. Panicked, everyone bolted for safety. In the chaos, Nora became trapped in the sinking sand and was moments away from being swallowed alive. Meanwhile, Suni was the fastest runner and reached the end of the tunnel first. But then, At the same time, Nora was finally pulled free from the sand. She and Holden rushed to the end of the passage, only to be met with a horrifying sight. A few hairless cats were viciously feeding on Suni. Without hesitation, Holden tossed down a flare. Fortunately, the creatures were frightened by bright light and immediately scattered into the darkness. But by the time they reached Suni, she was already dead. Now only 3 members of the team remained. Nora explained that the ancient Egyptians believed cats were the guardians of the pharaohs. If those creatures were protecting this pyramid, then a pharaoh must still be somewhere inside. And according to ancient burial traditions, the way out was often hidden within the pharaoh's tomb. With no better option, the survivors began searching for the burial chamber. After a long search, they finally found the pharaoh's tomb. But suddenly,
We don't want to end up
A man was swimming in the sea when he looked up and spotted a bizarre sight in the sky. Moments later, his body the look of a predator that has spotted its prey. Jack ran for his life and squeezed into the door's gap. But just as he thought he'd escaped, his foot slipped and he fell off the edge of the door crack. He tumbled down into the basement. When his wife Alice returned home, she saw bloodstains next to his clothes on the floor, and fear froze her in place. She shouted Jack's name, but Jack was in the basement. Hearing his wife's voice, he screamed for help as loud as he could, yet his voice was too faint for Alice to hear. At that moment, Alice saw the cat, and a terrifying thought crossed her mind: the blood on the floor. A piece of cloth and painstakingly made a shirt for himself to wear. Then he began to climb out with all his strength. Yet the basement was like a vast, wild world, filled with the unknown and danger, but he had no choice. He had to stay alive. The world kept flipping upside down.